The depth charger. Ambra was silent as Quill manoeuvred the depth charger away from Neptune's revenge. Lord Abzu's ship faded from view, and the depth charger began to pick up speed. Quill looked at Ambra as he checked the navigation settings. Don't worry. Abzu is an odd character to say the least, but he will not hurt Jevon. And he has a background in law enforcement. He used to, and for the Nautilans, huffed Ambra. Even they think he is too unpredictable, as you said yourself. I've known Abzu a long time. Once he fixes his mind on something, there's no use arguing with him. He has to arrive at conclusions of his own accord, reassured Quill. And when will that be? When he is good and ready, I'm afraid. He will likely deliver Jevon back to Atlantum. In the meantime, we need to focus on the task at hand. Your mother needs this copy of her team's work as fast as we can get it to her. Ambra slumped back in her seat, resigned. Hour after hour, the vessel sped along through the ocean depths, its powerful headlights showing a clear path ahead for the speed at which they were travelling, yet they were a pinpoint of light in a vast blackness. The ship's bow lights illuminated a parade of unusual deep-sea creatures Ambra had never heard of. In and out of the beams they came and went, each with a moment in the spotlight, as the depth charger wove its way around them, threading a path through various valleys and rock formations jutting up hundreds of metres from the sea floor. The hum of the vessel's engine, and Quill's gentle low whistle as he busied himself with various tasks, lulled Ambra into a sleepy state. She was halfway between being asleep and awake when Quill jumped up and cut the power to the engine and killed the lights. What? What's wrong? Cried Ambra, startled. Lucky I was watching. The navigation instrument somehow missed alerting me to that. Quill exhaled loudly as he peered at the navigation screen. Miss what? Nautila, said Quill, pointing at a barely discernible but colossal circular shape looming on the screen, about 2 nautical miles ahead of them. Ambra peered out of the cockpit window. You won't see it. It's too far away, not to mention too dark, but it's there. We must stay undetected, or we will be captured and searched, and then... His voice trailed off. Let's just say, at best, we'd make for a good ransom, especially a Terran captive, and there are rumours of nasty experiments on prisoners. But what are they doing north of the equator? And how on terror did their presence not trigger a warning from our radar? He muttered, poking at buttons and flipping levers on the navigation panel. What do we do now? Asked Ambra, trying to read Quill's anxious face in the dim light reflected from the navigation instruments. Stay very low, very quiet, very dark, and very slowly back away until we are clear of them, said Quill. You know where you are going though, right? I mean, you don't have lights, but you have radar, don't you? I can't use the radar right now either, admitted Quill. That's what will alert them to us, and I'm surprised it didn't beforehand. What I don't understand is how we didn't pick them up well before we were in range. The depth charger was slowly sinking, Quill guiding the craft inch by inch, waiting for any grating sensation and ready to course correct. Suddenly, all was illuminated with a flood of light. Nautila had lit the bottom of the ocean up like a Terran day, as high-powered beams scanned the surrounding area. Oh boy, breathed Quill. Have they seen us? Whispered Ambra. The light wasn't hitting the depth charger directly because Quill had managed to navigate the craft behind a section of jagged rock where it was out of the direct line of sight. They rarely use those lights because they don't need to and because they prefer to stay hidden. They've picked up on something, said Quill. What if they discover us? They're big and slow, we're small and fast. Surely we can outrun them. We can outrun Nautila, but not the smaller vessels they will send out after us, said Quill. The beam scoured the ocean for a few minutes, Ambra holding her breath, and Quill ready to spring into action. The lights went out. Ambra exhaled. We're not safe yet, cautioned Quill, guessing Ambra's next question. It was another agonising half an hour before Quill managed to steer the craft to a position that he deemed far enough away for it to be safe to turn the lights and engine back on. One eye carefully on the navigation screen, he opened the throttle and the depth charger surged forward. They were clear of Nautilus. Ambra sat back in her seat, her eyes closed. She opened them and looked at Quill. "Why is this research my mother has been working on causing all this drama?" she asked. "I know it's about editing out a destructive gene that humans have, but that's a good thing, right?" Quill turned to face her. "There is a concern that human beings are wired, genetically, to expand and fill every available space on Terra with their presence and their demands for resources. Though some Terrans have much less than others, and, of course, Terrans are only one species among billions who live on this planet. There are genuine and well-documented fears that humanity is headed for a full-scale ecosystem collapse, which would end civilization as we know it. Altering this gene en masse will help divert us from our current dangerous trajectory." "I get that. So why would anyone want to stop this technology?" "There are vested interests who want to see humanity continue on its current course, and those who either don't see the situation as a problem that will affect them, or who don't care about what it will mean for their descendants. Jevon understands why she does it, but he doesn't like Mum's gene tech work as a way to address the issue," confided Ambra. "My dad too. He's had huge fights with Mum over it. He thinks it's risky and could be used for unethical purposes, but Mum says we're out of time, we're not going to change quickly enough, and that it's far more dangerous to not try the gene editing. Dad reckons it's our culture that needs to change, that we could just choose to be different before we end up at a point of no return." "But will you?" said Quill. "This is the question at the core of your mother's research. Given you've known for decades the implications of continuing this pattern, why haven't you changed already?" "Lots of reasons, I guess," said Ambra. "Are any of them stronger reasons than preventing the demise of your species?" "They shouldn't be." "We are in a race against time and misinformation, Ambra," said Quill. "Necro has undoubtedly sold or traded that research documentation to a Terran buyer who plans to misuse it or misrepresent it. It will be difficult to convey the true meaning once mainstream and social media networks are alight with the incorrect or incomplete version." "And you have the only copy?" "Yes. There are Terran and Nautilan spies, double agents and hackers everywhere, and although it is not entirely free of espionage, Atlantum was the safest place to store your mother's research backup. The more copies that exist, the greater the risk of one being stolen and falling into the wrong hands. And as we've now learned, even with all our precautionary action to minimise that risk, it still happened." A lapse into silence. "How far out are we?" asked Ambra. "Another 2 hours to Venice, assuming no other close encounters," said Quill. Ambra nodded, reclined back in her seat and closed her eyes as the depth charger carried them swiftly on to their destination, the iconic city built on a lagoon.